The streets of Atlanta were quiet that April morning in 1913, but inside a pencil factory on Forsyth Street,
a crime was unfolding that would ignite a national firestorm, one that blurred the lines between justice and vengeance,
truth and hysteria, and forever changed how America saw its own conscience. Before we dive into the horrifying story of Mary Phagan, make sure to subscribe to Crimes Through Time.
And if you enjoy uncovering history's darkest crimes, give this video a like and share your
thoughts in the comments. It helps
others find these forgotten tales. Now,
let's step back to the early 20th century South, where class divisions, racial tension,
and rumor collided in one of the most infamous murder cases in American history. Mary Phagan was just 13 years old. She worked at the National Pencil Company in downtown Atlanta, one of thousands of young Southern girls who labored long hours for meager
pay in the city's growing industrial sector.
She had quit school to help her family survive,
her small paycheck supporting her widowed mother. On April 26, 1913, Confederate Memorial Day, Mary stopped by the factory to collect her wages. She never came home. That evening, the city celebrated the holiday.
But at around a.m.,
a night watchman named
Newt Lee discovered something horrific in the factory's basement. Lying in the dark, her dress torn and face bruised,
was the lifeless body of Mary Phagan. A cord was wrapped tightly around her neck.
She had been strangled to death. Beside her were drag marks through the dirt floor, suggesting someone had moved her body after the attack. Police were called, and by sunrise, the factory was a crime scene.
Detectives quickly began questioning everyone who had been inside that day.
Among them was the factory's superintendent, a man named Leo Frank.
Frank was a well-educated Jewish engineer from Brooklyn who had moved south to manage the pencil company. He was meticulous, intelligent, and respected by his peers.
But to the working-class families of Atlanta, he represented something different, the northern outsider.
The boss, the man of privilege, who seemed to look
down on the laborers who kept his factory running. When police arrived at Frank's home early that morning, he appeared nervous. He hadn't been asleep, claiming worry over the police presence near his factory.
He agreed to accompany officers back to the scene,
where he viewed Mary's body visibly shaken. He told investigators he'd last seen her around noon the previous day when she came for her pay envelope.
Just a small sum of $1.2.
But suspicion grew quickly. Detectives noted Frank's fidgeting, his repeated nervous gestures, and his inconsistent recollection of details. In a case where facts were scarce and pressure immense, police began to build a theory, and Leo Frank,
the educated northerner, became their prime suspect.
Yet there was another man in the shadows of this story, Jim Conley, the factory's African-American janitor. He couldn't read or write well, but his connection to the building's underbelly made him invaluable to investigators. At first, Conley denied knowing anything. Then, under questioning, his story changed, and changed again, and again. Eventually, Conley told police that Leo Frank had confessed to killing
Mary and ordered him to help dispose of the body. According to Conley, Frank was panicked, saying, "She resisted me, and I struck her," the janitor claimed.
He helped move the girl's body to the basement and wrote notes left near the
scene, supposedly dictations from Frank, meant to mislead police. The murder notes, as they came to be called, were bizarre, filled with grammatical errors and cryptic phrases like, "He said he would love me." Despite the contradictions in Conley's story, prosecutors saw their chance.
They charged Leo Frank with murder.
The trial began that summer and
became one of the most sensational
in Southern history.
Reporters packed the courtroom.
Crowds gathered outside the courthouse, shouting, jeering, demanding justice for little Mary. The press painted
lurid pictures an innocent
Southern girl violated and slain by a northern factory boss. The anti-Semitic undercurrent was unmistakable. Leo Frank's defense team argued fiercely that Conley was lying to save himself,
that he, not Frank, was the real killer. They pointed to Conley's shifting testimony, his history of petty crimes, and the implausibility of his story.
But the prosecution hammered the narrative of moral outrage. Frank was an outsider, a man of education who preyed on young factory girls. The courtroom atmosphere was toxic.
Witnesses contradicted one another.
The public shouted through open windows,
and the newspapers inflamed the mob outside.
Even the judge seemed uneasy, aware that a verdict either way could ignite chaos. When the jury returned after only a few hours of deliberation, the crowd outside erupted.
They had found Leo Frank guilty of murder.
Inside, Frank stood pale and silent as the words were read.
He was sentenced to death by hanging.
As he was taken away, cheers rose from the mob outside. Women wept with joy. Men shouted that justice had been done, but beneath the noise,
Doubt lingered. Many who had followed the trial closely felt the evidence was
paper thin that
clear. Frank had been convicted not by proof, but by prejudice. Frank's attorneys appealed all the way to the Georgia Supreme Court and, finally, to the U.S. Supreme Court, which refused to intervene.
But one man, Georgia's Governor John Slayton, decided to review the case himself. What he found disturbed him deeply.
Governor Slayton read the transcripts,
examined the evidence, and visited Frank in prison.
He became convinced that Leo Frank had not received a fair trial. On June 21, 1915,
just one day before Frank's scheduled execution,
Slayton commuted his sentence from death to life imprisonment.
He declared,
"I would rather risk the condemnation of men than risk condemning a man to death. I believe innocent." Atlanta exploded in rage.
Mobs formed the governor's mansion. Effigies of Slayton were burned in the streets.
Fearing for his life, the governor and his wife fled the state under guard.
But the fury didn't end there.
2 months later, a group of men calling themselves the Knights of Mary Phagan decided to take
justice into their own hands. On the night of August 16, 1915,
they broke into the state prison at Milledgeville.
They overpowered the guards, kidnapped Leo Frank,
and drove him 175 miles to Mary Phagan's hometown. At dawn, they hanged him from an oak tree.
Photos of the lynching were sold as postcards.
Thousands came to see the sight. No one was ever charged. In the aftermath, the nation was horrified.
The lynching of Leo Frank sparked outrage across America and the world.
Jewish communities
saw it as proof that anti-Semitism
had taken root even in the United States. It led to the revival
of the Ku Klux Klan born again in the very county where Frank was murdered, and to the founding of the Anti-Defamation League, created to fight the same hate that had destroyed him.
As for Mary Phagan, she was buried quietly in Marietta. Her death became a symbol twisted by both sides for some,
a story of Southern vengeance
for others, a warning about the dangers of mob justice. Decades later, new research and testimony from witnesses who had stayed silent revealed that
Jim Conley may indeed have been the real killer.
In 1986,
Leo Frank was posthumously pardoned by the state of Georgia, not for proven innocence, but because the state acknowledged its failure to protect him and provide a fair trial. The murder of Mary Phagan was more than just a crime.
It was a reflection of a nation divided by class,
by prejudice, and by fear of the other.
It was about how truth can vanish when outrage takes control, and as the years passed, her ghost and Leo Franks continue to haunt the American conscience.
Thank you for watching Crimes Through Time. If this story fascinated you,
make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more
journeys into history's darkest mysteries.
And tell us in the comments, do you believe Leo Frank was innocent? Or was justice truly served? We'll see you in the next episode. Until then, stay curious, stay safe.